When Terry accused me of infidelity during a business trip and demanded a divorce, his voice boomed through the phone. I should have felt shaken, but I remained unfazed. This was just another one of his dramatic outbursts. Despite sensing his emotional tremors from miles away, I was well prepared. His belief that I could be swayed by his theatrics was almost laughable. As his baseless accusations crashed against my firm resolve, I oscillated between irritation and mild amusement. But in that moment, I began to feel empowered. This wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was a defining moment for me. Internally, I smirked at his pathetic attempts to manipulate me, and then, in a pivotal flash of insight, I realized it was my turn to take control. I'm Megan, 30 years old, and I've been steadily employed at a college bookstore since graduating from junior college at 21. In contrast, Terry, 3 years my senior, had a rocky career path. When we first met 2 years ago, he was constantly job hopping or unemployed. His marriage proposal came swiftly, but I insisted on a precondition. He needed to secure a stable job. I was determined not to enter into a marriage without ensuring our financial future. Okay, but there's a condition, I stated firmly, noticing the worried look on his face. You need to find a stable job. Otherwise, marriage is off the table. We have to think about our future. He tried to brush it off with a casual remark. Don't worry, you're working, so there's no rush, right? But I reminded him that my parents would have concerns if I got married without a stable job. After laying down my condition, he promised to find a job before we seriously considered marriage. With a newfound sense of responsibility, he began his job hunt and eventually landed an office role at a construction company, allowing us to move forward with our wedding plans. At the time, I viewed Terry as somewhat reckless with finances and his career, but I believed we could complement each other. I hoped to guide him toward financial prudence while he could bolster my strengths. Little did I know, however, that our real challenges were just around the corner. About a year into our marriage, as we started exploring options to buy a house, Terry dropped a bombshell. I might not qualify for a mortgage, he said casually one day. I was stunned. What do you mean? I demanded more details. He explained that since he hadn't been in his job for very long, he might need a guarantor for the mortgage. The only person who could help is my dad, but he's overwhelmed with his gambling debts. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? I was flabbergasted, especially since we were already sitting with the contract and the real estate agent right there. Ever unfazed, Terry suggested, if we put the house in your name, it should be fine, right? You've been at your job for a long time, so securing the loan won't be a problem. We can both contribute to the mortgage payments. It's just a technicality. That's not the point. I shot back, my frustration mounting. I argued, feeling my frustration simmer. Why didn't you bring this up earlier? This affects me too, and I'm not even prepared with the necessary paperwork. Although he apologized, his remorse felt shallow, lacking any real depth. Despite my urge to press the issue further, the contract lay on the table, pushing us into a corner with the real estate agent present. I decided against escalating the situation. Reluctantly, I hurriedly gathered the documents I needed for the loan application, like my income statement. In a spur-of-the-moment decision, I finalized the purchase of the house in my name. Doubts gnawed at me. Could I really see a future with this man? Perhaps I should have firmly stated that we wouldn't proceed instead of rushing to prepare the paperwork. My anxiety only deepened with the looming issue of my father-in-law's financial instability. Just the other day, I was talking to Dad when Terry started casually. He might lose his house because of the debts I told you about, so he's thinking about moving in with us. Is that okay with you? Why would you even consider that without discussing it first? I snapped, frustration rising. Terry simply shrugged. Well, he's in trouble, and my brother is working abroad and can't help. I'm the only one Dad can turn to. Maybe we could let him stay with us, at least until he sorts out his situation. But having him live with us permanently, that's a huge decision, I countered. Terry frowned. You just don't want him to stay, do you? If he moves in, we could split the living expenses. Always with the money, I shot back, exasperated. You're the one who never seems to contribute. I retorted sharply. You promised we'd split the mortgage, but I'm the only one paying. You haven't contributed at all. In a marriage, finances are supposed to be shared. It's not just my money, it's supposed to be ours. It's only coming out of my account because the house is in my name. You're being incredibly self-centered. My voice was thick with exasperation, but Terry muttered under his breath, I hate discussing money, before storming out of the room. These disputes became a regular occurrence in our home. Terry would dismiss my concerns, leaving unresolved tensions to simmer between us. Despite the strain, he didn't entirely ignore his family situation. As part of his job in construction site administration, which often involved handling real estate contracts, he actively sought advice from an agency on how to secure the best deal for selling his family's home, including all the necessary procedures. I often caught snippets of these discussions, and while they served as a constant reminder of our issues, it was somewhat comforting to know he was taking action. However, the looming possibility of my in-laws moving in with us after the sale of their home hung over me like a dark cloud. Terry began attending meetings with real estate agents and even included his parents in the conversations. Without my involvement, his weekends started to fill up with trips away from home, and eventually, he left for an extended business trip to oversee a construction site far away. At the time, I didn't fully grasp it, but the seeds of our ongoing power struggle had already been planted. A few days after Terry left, I decided to treat myself to some shopping and a cup of tea at a cafe. To my surprise, a familiar face greeted me, someone who brought back memories of past interactions at our home. It was Bruce, a young employee from the real estate company Terry frequently consulted. Terry had mentioned that Bruce was relatively new, having been there for less than a year. "Ah, yes, I remember you. You visited our house before, right?" I recalled. "Yes, I apologize for dropping by unannounced and even joining for a meal that time," Bruce replied, seeming genuinely apologetic. "There's no need to worry. I should have been more welcoming," I reassured him. I found myself reflecting on our past interaction as Bruce and I shared tea together. He was affable and, despite his youth, seemed far more level-headed than Terry. Our conversation flowed easily, and we discovered common ground that made the time pass quickly. Eventually, we bid each other farewell, parting ways feeling a little more connected than before. I never imagined that such a simple meeting for tea could later be misconstrued into a devastating accusation of infidelity. Yet that's exactly what happened when Terry confronted me upon his return. "You've been cheating on me while I was away, haven't you? We're getting a divorce. Give the house to my parents and leave immediately," he declared abruptly. His words struck me like a bolt from the blue, blindsiding me when I was least prepared. I stood there, reeling as I grappled with the shocking accusation. Could the rumors I had heard be true? It seemed Terry had been spreading lies, crafting a narrative of my supposed infidelity to justify his desire for a divorce. The supposed other man in this fabricated story was Bruce, the very person Terry had accused me of having an affair with. The day after our seemingly innocuous tea meeting, Bruce showed up at my doorstep. "I apologize for the unexpected visit yesterday," he said, looking a bit sheepish. "Terry asked me to reach out to you." He stood in my doorway, looking both confused and curious. I invited Bruce in, eager to uncover the full story. What he revealed left me utterly stunned. Terry had orchestrated a plan to frame me for infidelity as part of his strategy to secure a divorce. Bruce, unwillingly caught up in this scheme, had been tasked with fabricating evidence to support Terry's deceitful plot. Terry's motivations were driven by two main factors. First, he was anxious about losing his parents' home due to their financial troubles and viewed living with them as an easy escape. My resistance to this idea had pushed him to concoct a scheme to oust me and claim the house for himself. Second, Terry had been having an affair. He spent many weekends with his mistress, disguising his time away as discussions about his parents-in-law's issues. His growing infatuation with her had led him to see me, his wife, as an obstacle. By framing me for infidelity, he aimed to eliminate me from the picture and secure the house for his own benefit. Initially, I had believed Terry lacked cunning, but the complexity and maliciousness of his plan were shockingly devious. As I expressed my disgust, Bruce apologized for his role in the plot. However, I had no intention of letting Terry succeed with his deceitful machinations. I pretended to cooperate while secretly strategizing a counterattack. With Bruce's insights into real estate, we brainstormed several tactics, ultimately landing on a bold plan: sell the house while Terry was away. When Terry returned and was stunned by the news of the sale, I was ready for my confrontation. "I know everything, Terry. Bruce recorded all your schemes, including your attempts to frame me for cheating with him. If we go through with this divorce, I can seek alimony and take you to court," I declared, relishing the shock on his face. "Why?" he stammered, bewildered, but I wasn't finished yet. I had one more revelation. "You might not have realized it, but Bruce isn't just some new employee. He's the son of the company's CEO. I pointed out, astonished by Terry's ignorance. Didn't you notice that Bruce shares the same last name as the CEO? How did that escape your notice? Terry tried to brush it off. Well, Bruce's last name isn't exactly uncommon. Are you serious right now? I couldn't believe his lack of awareness. Yes, I'm serious, Terry replied, his astonishment evident. It slowly dawned on him that Bruce's involvement meant that his company, a crucial client that handled much of his family's real estate dealings, was now intimately aware of his deceit. If this news reached the CEO, Terry would be in serious trouble. In fact, Bruce had likely already informed his father about the entire situation. Look, fine, Terry began, realizing the precariousness of his position. I'll check it out, but if you're lying, I'll find out, Terry said, his voice strained before abruptly hanging up. He soon realized the full consequences of his actions when the real estate company owned by Bruce's father severed all business ties with him, refusing any further dealings or advice regarding his family property. With the sale of my house already finalized, Terry had no choice but to return to his family home after his business trip. Fortunately, Bruce had helped me find an affordable apartment, making my transition easier as I began the divorce proceedings. Despite this, Terry continued to reach out, his voice desperate over the phone. I'm sorry, Megan. Please forgive me, he pleaded. It's too late for apologies, I replied firmly. You tried to manipulate me by using someone else. Why should I believe anything you say now? Don't say that. After our divorce, you can be with that other woman, right? That's what you wanted, isn't it? He shot back, attempting to shift the blame. Yeah, well, she had someone else she liked and dumped me. What a sorry tale, I retorted. But just because of that, don't expect me to change my mind and come running back to you. With that, I ended the call with a heavy sigh. Despite my efforts to keep my new address from him, Terry's calls were relentless. Each time, he pleaded, please don't leave me. I'll change. I'll be a better husband. But I was weary of his empty promises. Once the divorce was finalized, I planned to delete his number, block him on WhatsApp, and cut off all contact completely. To complicate matters, even my mother-in-law reached out, her voice pleading. Please, Megan, we'd be lost without you. It's not just about the house. There's no house left, I reminded her sharply. We're not that heartless. Come back, and you'll understand, she implored. You wanted the money, didn't you? I shot back, my frustration evident. That's not true. You're being unfair, she insisted. You tried to coerce me into living with you, I reasoned, but I was beyond listening. Their motives had become clear, and I was determined not to fall back into their manipulative grasp. When I refused to comply, Terry resorted to deception to gain an advantage during our divorce proceedings. I simply couldn't trust someone who relied on such underhanded tactics. I made my position clear, pointing out his obvious financial motivations. Despite my firm rejections, the requests kept coming. Then my father-in-law intervened, his voice dripping with condescension. He questioned whether I was neglecting my responsibilities as a daughter-in-law by not supporting his wife more. He couldn't believe I would refuse, attributing my stance to the personal debts I had supposedly accrued. I stood my ground, and in response he raised his voice so much that it was painful to listen to. He accused me of being cruel, neglecting my mother-in-law during her time of need, and unfairly blaming her for my own issues. He even threatened to make me regret my decisions, calling me a wicked woman. After that distressing call, still resolute, I saved the audio recording and discussed it with my lawyer. It turned out that my father-in-law's aggressive words constituted legal threats. Armed with this evidence, I warned Terry that I was prepared to take legal action unless he agreed to the divorce terms. Faced with no other options, he finally agreed, albeit reluctantly. This marked my liberation from the oppressive grasp of his family. Following the divorce, Terry's professional reputation took a nosedive. His colleagues' trust in him waned, and he faced diminished responsibilities at work. Financial strains forced him to sell the family home at a significantly lower price. Now, he lives in a small apartment with his parents, grappling with reduced income and the pressure of supporting them. Additionally, he is obligated to pay me alimony. I learned about the extent of Terry's difficulties through Bruce, who remained a trusted confidant. While exploring new career opportunities, I found a chance to use the customer service skills I had developed at a clothing store. Bruce, who had recently moved to the HR department of a real estate firm, encouraged me to apply for a role that required strong communication skills. After giving it some thought and discussing the potential with Bruce, I decided to accept the job offer and join the real estate company. During this period of transition, Bruce and I grew closer, and our friendship eventually blossomed into something more. After a year of dating, we decided to get married, and I became the partner of someone who would one day become the president of the company. It was an unexpected twist of fate that Terry, who had once wrongfully accused us of infidelity, would witness our love flourish and culminate in marriage. Now, with the support of my new family, including my in-laws, I am excited to build a beautiful future with Bruce. We look forward to creating many happy memories together, bolstered by the love and support of those around us.